We have an individual here who is here seeking confirmation to one of the highest judicial offices in the land. I'm asking quite legitimate questions about potential misconduct in office, and the fact that I can't get anything resembling a straight answer in the circumstances that we're in right now, I think is signals a really bad moment for this committee.
Donald Trump's former criminal defense lawyer, who is currently Donald Trump's principal associate deputy attorney general, testified, or should we say refused to testify, at his confirmation hearing today for a federal judgeship on the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. Emil Bove was heavily involved in what a federal judge found to be an illicit deal to drop criminal charges against New York City Mayor Eric Adams in exchange for Mayor Adams' cooperation enforcing Donald Trump's immigration policy.
Did you ever talk to Stephen Miller before you filed the memorandum on February 10th ordering the dismissal of the Adams charges?
Senator, I responded to Senator Kennedy's questions based on a publicly filed document that described the Attorney General as a...
Did you talk to Stephen Miller?
I'm not going to describe the participants in conversations.
So you won't answer that question?
No, I will not, Senator.
Why?
Because it is not appropriate for me to discuss...
It is appropriate for you to tell us whom you consulted before taking action on behalf of the United States of America.
This week, a whistleblower who was fired by the Trump Justice Department submitted a statement to the Justice Department Inspector General and to the Senate Judiciary Committee saying that he was in a meeting where, quote, Bove stated that DOJ would need to consider telling the courts, fuck you, and ignore any such court order.
In the complaint, it says, Bove stated that DOJ would need to consider telling the courts, fuck you, and ignoring any such court order. Did you say anything of that kind in the meeting?
Senator, I have no recollection of saying anything of that kind. To the extent I
Wouldn't you recall, Mr. Bove, if you said or suggested during a meeting with Justice Department lawyers that maybe they should consider telling the court, it seems to me that would be something you'd remember, unless that's the kind of thing you say frequently.
Well, I've certainly said things encouraging litigators at the department to fight hard for valid positions that we have to take in defense of our clients.
And if you frequently suggested that they say F you and ignore court orders, is that also something you frequently do so that you might not remember doing it on this occasion?
No, and as I explained, I have never directed...
So did you or did you not make those comments during that meeting?
Which comments, Senator?
You really need me to repeat it? Did you suggest, as Mr. Ruveni wrote, that DOJ would need to consider telling the courts you and ignore any such court order?
I did not suggest that there would be any need to consider ignoring court orders. At the point of that meeting, there were no court orders to discuss.
Well, did you suggest telling the courts you in any manner?
I don't recall.
You just don't remember that.
Senator Sheldon Whitehouse was at that hearing. He's back with us. Senator Whitehouse, it sounds like Emil Bove might be worried that there is an audio tape of what he actually said in that room that might explain his retreat to what he might think is the safe zone of I don't recall.
Yeah, he was clearly dodging around and avoiding questions in the hearing. He sounded more like a mob witness from the old days who'd been called before the Senate than a sincere applicant for one of the higher judicial offices. And he got a lot of cover, unfortunately, from the Republicans in enabling him to avoid those answers. It was actually a pretty remarkable hearing in that sense, because the Republican chairman led with the invitation to Bove to refuse to answer questions based on deliberative process and attorney-client privileges, which Congress for decades has refused institutionally to accept as a limitation on Congress's constitutional oversight. Neither of those privileges is in the Constitution. We've always said as a body that our oversight responsibilities, which are in the Constitution, overwhelm these non-constitutional privileges. And so to have the Judiciary Chairman willy-nilly cough that up, something I don't think has ever been conceded by Congress before, just to give this guy cover so that he could fail to answer questions. And if you don't mind me going on just for 1 minute, the Blumenthal questioning was important about his comments to Stephen Miller, because the backdrop your viewers might not know is that the Judiciary Committee has way back to Attorney General Reno required the department to maintain what we call a contacts memo that limits the number of people in the department and the number of the people in the White House who can talk to each other about ongoing cases. It's a very small number of only very high-ranking officials. And if this conversation took place between Bove and Miller, it would have violated that memo. So this was a very important question that Senator Blumenthal was asking, and his failure to answer is a failure to answer whether or not he violated a department policy, which is a really lousy answer for somebody seeking to be a judge.
And as anyone who's spent any time around the Senate knows, before the age of Donald Trump, Chairman Chuck Grassley and other Republican members of that committee would be as fully interested in that information as you are, and they would pursue it just as energetically, no matter which party the nominee came from. But this is the new Trump Republican Party.
The chairman has specifically said in the past that the deliberative process privilege should not interfere with the Judiciary Committee's ability to get documents and information. So it was weird, and I don't know if this was apparent from the record of the hearing, but both Todd Blanche and Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, came over to give the eyeball to Republicans and make sure that they were lined up also. So with that crowd of Trump MAGA AG folks coming over, with this really unusual concession by the chairman at the outset that Bove didn't have to answer questions, and then him refusing to answer questions without even asserting a particular privilege, just saying, I don't think it's appropriate. Not his call. He has to answer the questions if he wants to be a judge.
I strongly suspect that is the first time in the history of the Senate Judiciary Committee that an Attorney General sat in the audience of a hearing. That's something new. Senator Whitehouse, thank you very much for joining us tonight.